part one of my DVD and Blu-ray update for July 2024. Hi everybody, and welcome to my DVD and Blu-ray update for July 2024. Quite a lot to get through here, so this may be over two parts. You'll already know this because of pre-credits and titles and what have you. But let's see how we go. So this is everything I've watched basically since my last DVD and Blu-ray update, and I will quickly explain again for those of you who haven't watched those. I have a huge backlog of DVDs and Blu-rays that I haven't watched. My sort of resolution for this year is to crack my way through them, so I'm being a lot more strict about watching them. When I look over, I can see that a dent has been made in the pile, but I'd think a stranger would think, really? But yes, anyway, without any more ado, first one I watched, bit of a strange one. This is actually a CD of the Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith soundtrack that I picked up for £1 in a charity shop, but it comes with a DVD called... what's it called? I didn't say it on there. Did it say it on there? A musical journey. Star Wars: A Musical Journey. And it's basically an overview of the series to this point, so the first 6 films, through the music, and it's got linking bits by Ian McDiarmid, the Emperor Palpatine, explaining the story, and then there's sort of montages of pieces of music with scenes from a film. As I say, montages rather than specific scenes. But yeah, it's very enjoyable. I'm glad I picked that up. So my good friend Craig Huntley, he, as I've mentioned on previous videos, he buys DVDs and Blu-rays to watch. Once he's watched them, with some exceptions, he doesn't keep them, and he gives me first dibs on them for any that I want to watch. He also used to do reviews for various websites, and in his time got sent some review copies of discs, particularly ones from Arrow Films, and he's passed a lot of them on to me, and you'll see some of those in this video. This is the first one. So this is Sleepwalkers, which is a film based on a Stephen King story. Really enjoyed this. It's about a couple of vampires who dine, feast, whatever you want to call it, on the blood of female virgins. Really well done, decent effects, good story, well acted. Yeah, enjoyed that one a lot. Is this both of them in here? No, this is House 2. This is House 2. Forgive me, I can't remember the subtitle of it. I'm sure there was one. If you'd have seen him, I think it was in the last part, in the last update, but I wasn't a big fan of the first House. It was trying to be a horror comedy, but it wasn't horrific enough and it wasn't comedic enough, so it did very little for me. House 2, I'm trying to remember which way round it was. Sorry, future me. Totally balls that up. So the film I'm talking about is House 3. House 2 is more of a horror comedy again. It is a lot better than House 1. I actually enjoyed a great deal of it, although it did get weird at times. But yeah, everything I'm about to say was actually about House 3. I think this is the one, it was... Yes, it was. This was a lot more serious. It was a film that was originally not intended to be a house film, but then they rebranded it. So it's about a policeman who is being... he catches a murderer, watches him in the electric chair, but the electric chair needs loads and loads of power to kill him because he's got this incredible force, and basically the murderer then comes back to torment his family in their house and what have you. It wasn't great. It was well acted, and it was, the plot was decent enough, but it was just nothing special. Again, it wasn't quite horrific enough. This one didn't really try and be a comedy, which was good. But yeah, it still wasn't great. It's Primeval, the complete season 1, or complete series 1 to 5, so that's all the UK series. They then bought it back in Canada, which I haven't seen the Canadian series, but that only ran for one series anyway. I loved Primeval when it was on, watched it avidly. Haven't watched it since, but was glad to finally get this. This was a Christmas present. It'd been on my Amazon wish list, and this was a Christmas present a couple of years ago. So if you're not familiar, this sort of piggybacked on the success of Doctor Who. After that came back in 2005, but it's sci-fi. So basically there's what they are called anomalies, which are sort of wormholes in time, start appearing, and dinosaurs and primeval creatures come through them and terrorise modern day England. Why they're all in England, I don't know, but anyway. And various people get, at the start of it anyway, various people get involved in trying to hunt these creatures and stop them, and eventually a whole task force is created around them. Yeah, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's Saturday night TV. The effects for their time are good. Some of them have dated a bit, some of them stand up okay. Overall, it's really good. I have an issue with the first 2 series, in that the lead actor, Douglas Henshall, I've never been a fan of. I don't think he can act. I really struggle watching him, so that puts me off a bit of the first 2 series, but after that it improves. They get various characters come and go, but there's 3 actors who stay throughout. Yeah, really enjoyed, glad to revisit it. This was sent to me by Craig. So this is a Sunday Times freebie of Talk Radio, the Oliver Stone film, one of the few Oliver Stone films I hadn't already seen. So this is a good film, really enjoyed it. It's about a shock jock, played by Eric Bogosian, who wrote and starred in the original play that this was based on. I think he definitely starred in it. I think he wrote it as well. Yes. It's loosely based on a true story, and it's about, as I say, it's about a shock jock who starts getting death threats, and at the same time as he's signed up to a bigger radio station and is going nationwide in America. And it's about what happens without spoiling it. But yeah, it's, it's very static. It's nearly all set in the radio station, and it's very limited cast members, although a lot more as callers to the radio show. But yeah, really well acted, very interesting watch, very well done, very good. This is Eternals, the Marvel film. I know this wasn't widely loved. I wouldn't say I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was fine. I think, there is a certain amount of Marvel fatigue going on at the moment, and it needs something special to sort of boost it. This wasn't it. But overall, I enjoyed it. Excellent cast. Yeah, fine. This is another Marvel. This is Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings. So I actually watched this back in October when I went up and stayed with my dad and stepmum for a week. We put a film on every night, and he had this and we put this on. So this was the second watch of this. which I must admit, because I wasn't concentrating enough, I did doze off at one point in it, but not because of a film, but more because I'd already seen it and I was very tired. But yeah, I actually quite enjoyed it. It didn't feel overly Marvel-y to me, which might be why I enjoyed it more, because, as I say, because of the Marvel fatigue. I don't sort of describe the plot of these films, because I guess anybody who's sort of interested in them has already seen them, and lots of people have talked about them. But yeah, as I say, I think it's well acted, excellent effects, as you'd expect from Marvel, some good funny moments, good action. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. So this is a double set of The Three Musketeers and Four Musketeers. So these are the Dick Lester films based on the Alexandre Dumas novels, starring Oliver Reed, Christopher Lee, Michael York, Charlton Heston, Raquel Welch, Faye Dunaway, Alan Bates. Do I mean Alan Bates? I don't mean Alan Bates. I mean Frank Finlay. And Richard Chamberlain. So I was trying to think of, among others, Roy Kinnear, sorry, brain. So these films I watched a lot when I was younger. We used to get them out on VHS from a video shop quite regularly, and they were on telly, and we always watched them and enjoyed them, but I haven't watched them for years. So they were both filmed at the same time, and then released, I think, 6 months apart or a year apart in cinemas. So The Three Musketeers is a story of D'Artagnan going to Paris, I presume it is. I don't think it's ever mentioned. Yes. And how he gets involved with the Musketeers and then joins them up. And then The Four Musketeers is a continuation of the story, and a more specific plot involving the Lady de Winter. The fight scenes are very good. The acting's very good. They look good. What I found rewatching them many years later is I didn't find them as funny as I used to. That's probably just a change in my humour. And I thought they dragged a bit. Just a little bit. I mean, they're both 107 minutes long, so an hour and 3/4. So they're not really long, especially compared to, a lot of Marvel films and things like that. But just at times I felt they could be tightened a little bit. But I still really enjoyed them, and, it was nice to watch them again. Some more from Craig. Some more Arrow Testis. So this is the Ring collection. 3 discs. I won't show you the third one because I've only got 2 hands. So this is the Japanese horror series, Ring. And this has got the original film, the sequel, the prequel, and the original TV movie prequel. So they did Ring, then they did a TV movie prequel, but then because of the success of Ring overseas, they did a sequel, and then they did another prequel. I think that's the right way round. And the new prequel sort of is totally different from the previous prequel, which is interesting. I enjoyed them all. The TV movie prequel, you can tell it's a TV movie, but it's still good. Yeah, they're all really good films. I'm not sure I've ever found any of them scary, but they were a bit... I was going to say they were a bit unnerving, but they weren't even that. But I was still invested in them and wanted to know what was going on and what was going to happen. But yeah, I can't say I ever found them actually scary, but I did enjoy them a lot. This is Track 29, which is a Nicholas Roeg film. Big fan of Nick Roeg. Want to see as many of his films as possible. Have seen a lot of them. This is an interesting one. Not one of my favourites of his, to be honest, but I'm glad I've seen it. So, Gary Oldman turns up in this town looking for his mother, who abandoned him as a child. Theresa Russell is married to Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd is obsessed with train sets and is also a... Oh, he's... trying to remember... And I need to look this up. Some of these, you know, it's been 2 or 3 months since I've watched, and I've watched a lot. Yeah, it is still a model train. Yeah. He's obsessed with model trains, and he speaks at conventions and things like that. Gary Oldman meets Theresa Russell, decides that he's her son, convinces her that he's her son. It's a weird relationship because at times it's almost sexual. At times he's a complete baby. It's very strange. It's very destructive all round. Again, not going into too many details in case you want to watch this, which if you're a fan of Nick Rogue, do watch this. It's based... Well, it's not based on, it's written by Dennis Potter, who I'm also a big fan of, and it's based on an earlier TV drama that he wrote. Unfortunately, the weirdness of Dennis Potter and the weirdness of Nick Rogue, I think, are slightly clashing types of weirdness, if that makes sense, and so it doesn't quite work for me, but it's really well acted and it's interesting, and as I say, I'm glad I've seen it. But it's not my favourite Dennis Potter work, and it's not my favourite Nick Rogue work. This is King Rocker. So this is a documentary by Michael Cumming and Stuart Lee, the comedian. And it's about Robert Lloyd and Nightingales, who are a relatively obscure, let's call them cult, indie band in the UK. They've had no chart success, what have you. They were favourites of John Peel. They've been going for many years. I was only aware of them because of this documentary. When this was released, I bought this set, and I bought it as a little bundle with an album and CD of the soundtrack to this, which obviously is all their music. Well, in fact, the soundtrack is in here. But I bought it on vinyl as well, and I've listened to those, so I sort of knew their songs through that before watching this. But yeah, it's very interesting. So the documentary is sort of hosted by Stuart, and Robert Lloyd and former member of the Nightingales appear throughout. Robert Lloyd's a very interesting character, very dry wit. It's tied in, and the reason why there's this picture of King Kong. Back in the 70s, I think it was, a statue of King Kong was put up in Birmingham for reasons nobody really knows, and it didn't last long. There was a lot of uproar about it, because why this statue of King Kong, and it sort of tied in with what happened to that statue. They've sort of tied in with the band, and it's a bit convoluted, but it sort of works. But yeah, it's a really good documentary, really interesting, funny at times, as you'd expect. Yeah, enjoyed that a fair bit. This is Red Top. So this is a comic strip film from... Can I see you on it? 2015. And this is about the hacking scandal in the UK, where the UK tabloids in particular were hacking celebrities' phones to get stories. Big news story in the UK. Lots of people went to jail about it and over it and stuff like that. It's really well done. It's done as a 70s style film, but obviously it's about what was going on in the 80s and 90s, mainly the 90s. So all these characters, so Stephen Mangan there. He's playing Tony Blair. Yeah, that's Maxine Peake is Rebecca Wade, and so on and so forth. But yeah, good cast, well done. Typical comic strip presents, never laugh out loud hilarious, but always amusing, and enjoyed that. These are the last two House films, House 3 and House 4. I'm trying to remember the plots of them. One of them was sort of a sequel, a direct sequel to the first House, and had the same lead character. I can't even remember what the other one was. Basically, it was all more of the same with the House. I can't remember which one. One of them was a bit funnier than the previous entries. But none of them really wowed me. They're not films I'll probably be revisiting. But nice to have seen. House 3 and 4. This is a 1967 Casino Royale. One of umpteen copies. I've had this on every format. I already have it on Blu-ray, but this is a re-release with more extras. This was actually a Christmas present again. It's got an audio commentary and a big making of documentary, you know, a long one, and various other bits on there. It's also got and it's the main reason why I wanted another copy, it's got the 1954 TV version of Casino Royale. So the very first filmed version of Casino Royale was in 54, the year after. I'm trying to remember, was it 52 or 53? When did the book come out? No, 52 I think the book came out. So 2 years after the book came out. This stuff, I'm getting old. This stuff I used to be able to tell you exactly. So Fleming had sold the rights to Casino Royale separately before he sold the rights to everything else, which is why it took them so long to make Casino Royale in the official series. They eventually bought back the rights. And there is an American live TV drama based on it, but it's very loosely based. Peter Lorre plays Le Chiffre, but Bond is played by Barry Nelson, and he's Jimmy Bond, international card shark. He's not even a spy in it. He's just hired to take down Le Chiffre, and I say he's American. So the Felix Leiter character is British in it. It's all, you know, on its head. But it's nice to have that. I've got it on VHS, but it was nice to have that on Blu-ray. As for the 1967 Casino Royale, which again, this version was made because the rights were separate to the Eon official series. I love it despite it. If you haven't seen it, and I'm sure anybody who's sort of interested has, it's almost a spoof on the Bond films, but it was a complete mess. It had 5 or 6 different directors, as many, if not more, script writers. And it was all sort of pieced together because various actors had arguments, and mainly Peter Sellers was a nightmare on it. Although he wanted Orson Welles to play Le Chiffre, and it was his idea, he had a big falling out with him and wouldn't act in the same room as him, and so on and so forth. It's a lot of fun. It gets very strange at times. It doesn't really work plot-wise, but I still absolutely love it, and it's full of gorgeous women as well. But yeah, Casino Royale. This is Mortimer and Whitehouse Gone Fishing, complete second series. Love this series, have watched them all on TV, enjoying revisiting them on Blu-ray. So if you don't know, it's Paul Whitehouse and Bob Mortimer, who are 2 British comedians, been friends for years. Paul Whitehouse has had heart problems dating back a while. Bob Mortimer had sudden heart issues, had to have major surgery, and as part of the recuperation, Paul started taking him fishing, and it's been filmed and the series made from it. It's just basically two mates hanging around on riverbanks, shooting a shit, basically, having a laugh, at the same time as beautiful British countryside. And as the series progresses, there's more and more talk about various issues as well. Obviously the heart issues are addressed throughout, because that's what's brought them together. But as time goes on through the series, they address other issues as well and have guests in to talk about it and what have you. But it's all still really enjoyable and a lot of fun. Love the series. Yeah, series 2 of it and series 3. What's interesting rewatching them is that I'm 99% certain I mentioned after the first series was at that stage it was still full of swearing and what have you, and as it's become more popular and moved earlier in the evening on telly, that's all been cut. And then it's just various elements that you get used to later on, like when they put fish back and they go and away. That doesn't start happening until series 3, and even then it only happens a couple of times. Ted the dog, who appears regularly in later series, only starts appearing in a couple of these, and it's, you know, things like that, and you suddenly think, oh, you know, you sort of in your brain it's stuff that's always happened and it hasn't. And I will end this part with the second set of the complete Elementary. So this is series 4 to 7. So there's a big box set of all of Elementary. See, he's 1 to 7, split into these two little sections, and I talked about the first one after I'd finished that in the last part. Watch the rest of it. So yeah, this is a contemporary Sherlock Holmes. Unlike Sherlock, it's set in New York for the most part. It's got a female Watson, played by Lucy Liu, Joan Watson. She starts off as Sherlock's drug sponsor because he's just come out of rehab for his heroin addiction, rather than cocaine as he uses in his original stories. They are consulting detectives for the NYPD. It is very much overall sort of procedure of a week TV series, just like CSI and, you know, 101 other American cop shows, if you like. It's obviously got the twist, but it's got Sherlock in it, so it's his reasoning and deduction behind it. There are overall story arcs throughout the series as well, some that last a whole series, some that last half a series, some that last multiple series. I enjoyed it a lot. As I said for the first part, my biggest gripe with it is that a lot of Sherlock's deductions aren't really proper Sherlock Holmesian deductions. They're just normal deductions that anybody really could make. They're not really using Sherlock Holmes's special powers. But other than that, yeah. I mean, some of the story arc things I could have done without, really. But by and large, really enjoyed it. Okay, that's half the pile, and that's taken me half an hour. So this will be over 2 parts. I thought it might be. Stay tuned for that. It'll be up in a few days. Thank you for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. And I'll see you on another video. Thanks. Bye.